Good evening.
Good evening.
She is your granddaughter. Your granddaughter.
Yeah, that's my granddaughter. Yes.
She wants to listen to stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, live.
Yes.
Nice,
Okay.
nice.
So, namaste, everyone. Today, we are going to I'll share with you stories, love stories. All love stories. We'll talk about love stories, predominantly love stories. And these stories are not drawn from either other, except possibly one or two stories. Many stories are very real, very personal. Some were told to me by people, personally told, and that naturally I will not be able to reveal their names because I've sworn them to confidentiality. And so we'll listen to some stories. Now, this emotion called love, it's something, very, very difficult to understand. They say what happens? Love happens differently for a man and differently for a woman. For men, both these people, when they see people of the opposite sex, there is something called pheromones, which the man or the woman, they take it in through their eyes, nose, ears, taste. They inhale it, and it's something like that. They either inhale or they see it with their eyes and get it, or they hear the sound. For example, you pick up a telephone call and somebody says hello. What happens? Some pheromones go inside your system. These pheromones go inside your system, and here they tickle your brain. And it produces a chemical called dopamine. It's a pleasure chemical. It's based on that movie that they made, that movie, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. And that Kuch Kuch Hota Hai has its effects right up to the heart. Pure sare Kundalini Chakra, it affects it. For the ladies, it doesn't produce dopamine that much. It produces another chemical. Okay, that chemical is referred to in our Hindu Shastras and Hindu studies as Vatsalya Ras. For the man, it is Prem Ras. For the lady, it's Vatsalya Ras. It takes time. It's like deep burning coal. It takes time to burn deeply. For a man, it's like a flash. And when the flash and the deep burning coal meet, something happens. In there are no words for, they call it love in English, Mohabharat, they say. There are so many words used for that. But it is something unique, something extraordinary, something unique happens. So it is these love stories that I'm going to discuss with you today. A few such love stories. One love story dates back a few centuries. In a village in Tamil Nadu, South India, there is a person who is a devotee of Bhagwan Shri Vishnu. He keeps dreaming of Mahavishnu every day. He has a small flower orchard in which he grows flowers and sends it to Mahavishnu temple every day. So one day in that flower orchard, they discover a beautiful child. He's so impressed, and it's a child, had glowing eyes. Aankhon mein ek ajeeb sa law tha. There was a light in the child's eye. So he picked up the child, brought the child home, and brought it up as his own child. He was single. He didn't have a wife. Maybe she passed away. We don't know. He brought up the child. The child grew up to be a very beautiful young maiden. And she was brought up in an atmosphere where she was in love with Lord Vishnu, Mahavishnu. And she used to adorn the garlands herself and look at her image. She said, if the garland looks good on me, it should look good on Mahavishnu. One day when she was wearing the garland, her father saw and he slapped the child. He said, how can you defile a garland made for God? She said, Papa, you will never understand this. He comes in my dreams. He says, unless you wear the garland, I will not wear it. I see him every day. They made fun of her. Father spun another garland and they adorned it on Mahavishnu. The garland fell down. As many times he put the garland, it fell down. Finally, with tears in her eyes, this little girl said, try mine. And hey presto, that they say the idol of Mahavishnu turned into gold. This child grew up and they were looking for her or a groom among eligible bachelors, things like that. And she said, no. If I marry, I will marry only Mahavishnu. Father was amazed. This girl has gone mad. They say, the legend says, the Purana says that Lord Vishnu appeared and he told the saint, bring your daughter adorned like a bride to my temple, to my Sannadhi. So he said, the Lord's command. The whole town was watching. They took such beautifully adorned girl. She was called Andal. Andal means one who rules over. Rules over whom? Rules over Lord Vishnu's heart. So she was taken there. And when the priest in chief drew the curtain open, he found the idol of Mahavishnu dressed as though like a bridegroom. And even as people were watching, Andal disappeared into the image of Mahavishnu as though a light would disappear. Prema Bhakti, this is what it is called. And there is a village in this town now, Tamil Nadu. If you get a chance, you should go and see. It's called Srivilliputturu. Srivilliputturu. I don't know if the name is, pronunciation is right. There you have Andal, gorgeously adorned hair and garland, and Mahavishnu appears there as Raja Manvar, as the preceding deity, dressed in a groom's clothes. This is a beautifully religious story, bhakti-oriented story. Something similar happened to our known Meera. She merged into Krishna, they say. This is called Prema Bhakti. We need a lot of courage. Okay, we need a lot of courage to look at one more bhakti. Prema Bhakti in a different form. That is which Radha had for Krishna. It is described beautifully in Jayadeva's works. And somewhere along the way, I don't know why, we are not addressing that love properly. So when these pheromones start working inside you, okay, dopamine, there is a desire to hold the beloved close to you. It is not that beloved is there, I am there, I am saying, aha, acha, acha, mujhe tumse mohabbat hai nahi. They have to merge and fuse in love. There has to be physical, emotional oneness. There has to be a fusion. Radha Krishna's love talks about that kind of fusion. According to the story, Radha was older. Okay, and all that love happened in Vrindavana. You need a certain quiet, a certain fragrant atmosphere, a certain time of the day where only the beloveds are there. Lord Krishna and Radha alone are there. A certain fusion love. And in that fusion love, all our love stories end with saying, they lived happily hereafter. Okay. That happily hereafter is possibly a cinema. Krishna and Radha lived as one fused soul. They say at one point of time, Krishna had to leave for his Raja karma. He had to leave his teenage times and become a grown-up person. Thereafter, there's no indication of they having met. Okay. And there are certain factual irregularities also. Radha and Krishna met when Krishna was a teenager, not when he was a child. So there's a song, Yashomati Maiya se puche Nandalala, Radha kyun kori main kyun kala. He was a child, he didn't meet Radha then. He met her much later. So minus all these factual irregularities, inconsistencies, can we see Radha Krishna's love? We must read Jayadeva's work. Maybe someday I'll take you through Jayadeva's work. It is love, proper love. There's emotional intensity, there is passion, there is pining. I'm sure you must have heard the song composed by Madan Mohan for Lata Mangeshkar. Mairi, मैं कैसे कहूँ पीर अपने जिया की मायरी. How can I express the pain? पाकर भी नहीं उनको मैं पाती मायरी. I have him yet I don't have him. There's a lot of pining, there's a lot of pain. Love without pain is no pain, there's no love. There is pain, there is pleasure, there is fusion, there are momentary aliveness. And in that momentary aliveness, we forget ourselves. And when we are able to look at that absorption and introduce Vedanta there, you are Mukta Purusha. Andal, when she is able to look at that union, she became Mukta Purusha. Meera became a Mukta Purusha. Something unique. From this, let us come to Laukika stories. Stories of real life, which I am a witness to. I personally heard a couple of these stories. The two stories I'm going to tell you are personally heard by me, and I will not be telling the names of the persons. The names and everything, only the names are changed. Situations are exactly the same. One day, this young gentleman, not young gentleman anymore, he was into his 50s possibly. 55 years old around, I think. He was in Chennai-based person. He was listening to some Sunday morning music program. His wife and family had gone away for work, sitting alone, listening to some music. And his mobile phone buzzed and he got a call. The number flashed and he said, oh my God, this person is calling me after such a long time. I can't believe it. The voice of the other end said, Baba. Baba means father. His mouth went dry. He said, Baba. She said, Maya Bolchi. I am Maya calling you from here. He said, Maya. And his story life went back so many years when he was in his early 20s. When he was working in Kolkata, just a school student in Kolkata. This man was very deeply in love with an exceptionally beautiful lady called Moshumi. Not some actress, but her real name was Moshumi. And he used to call her Mishu. And he was from different backgrounds. His name was Kabir, a Baha'i faith person. And she was a Hindu, Bengali lady. And when they met, this fusion took place. Pheromones exchanged. They possibly kept staring at each other for a long time. I'll be using a few Bengali words here and there. Okay? She said, Kita kachu. What are you staring at? He said, I don't know. She said, Tumhar prem hoye gache. She told him, you're in love with me. It blossomed that they loved very deeply, very, very deeply, so much in love with each other. Okay, and then it always happens, no? एक सयाद चमन में आया, ले गया वो बुलबुल को पकड़ के, और दीवाना गुल मुरझाया, और दीवाना गुल मुरझाया. That story happened for these people. Maushami came from a wealthy family, so wealthy. They had acres and acres of tea gardens in Assam. In Kolkata, they had so much of properties, unbelievably rich people. And this fellow Kabir was a middle class fellow, still looking for a job. He had parents to support, sisters to support. His income was just about for the family. But the father, Maushami's father, said, call that fellow. And they talked. And Maushami's father told her, what you earn is not even enough for buying lingerie for my daughter. And the house you stay in is smaller than what our driver's quarters are. It's not a film story, it's a real life story. But it's changed a little. He said, that's okay. That's perfectly okay. But I can make things different for you. Maushami loves you like my only child. She loves you like mad. And what I can possibly do is, you become ghar jamai. We'll get you married. You come over to my house. You live in my house. And you see what a sprawling house it is. And you can live here. You can live with us. And we can have a nice life. And you can give maintenance to your parents and things like that. But this fellow was so proud, He said, if Maushami is willing, she can come and stay with me in my frugal income. Maushami initially said yes. I don't know what happened. She initially said yes. She said, I'm prepared. And father said, like typically, no property at all. She said, it's perfectly all right. I'm going to live with you. He took her home, and Kabir's mother saw her. She explained, Nikho, this is our house, a rented house. We are all dependent upon him. This is our family life. See if you can adjust. All along, they were saying, yes, I will adjust. Yes, I will adjust. Kurbo, Amar Kabir Chayar, I don't want anybody else in my life. I only want Kabir in my life. This is what she was saying. And all along she was saying this. And then I don't know what happened. One day she called him over. One day she called him and said, hey, Kabir, I want to tell you something. They met in a small restaurant and she couldn't say. So he understood that she wanted to separate. She didn't want to go ahead. He said, Cheda, forget it. And swallowed his pride, put his hands in his pockets, turned away and walked away. That's how he walked away years ago. Years ago. Much later, nearly about 22 years after he walked away, one day he got a call. Similar call from the same number. This time it was Mishu Bolchi. He said, son, I'm a married man with a family of my own and Mishu is calling me now. And she said, tomorrow my daughter is coming over. She has some work in Chennai, in the American consulate. Will you take care? Will you help her? Just imagine, lady says, I can't go through it. And after 20 years, she says, my daughter will come back. Take care of, will you take care? Typical of guys who can't easily forget. He says, okay, Mishu, I'll do what I can. And he went to the airport to receive. And when in the arrivals lounge, his daughter of, and then in his mind he was saying, this Mishu said, I'm sorry I can't marry you, but I promise I will not marry anyone. Ami aka thakbo. Ami jogino hoi jabo. I'll become like a jogin. I won't marry anyone. You are free to marry. Because he got married all right. But he was wondering, all these promises, empty words. And then From the arrivals lounge, this girl came out. The fellow was stunned. He couldn't utter a word. That girl came to him, smiled and said, Baba, obag hoy gacho na. You're surprised, no, Baba? He realized that when they separated, Moshmi was carrying his child. She didn't mention it to him. She delivered the child. And the child was a split mirror image of Kabir. The same striking cleft in the chin, the aquiline nose, broad forehead, clear grey eyes, stunningly attractive. And she said, Amar Nam Maya. I have been named Maya by my mother. He had no words at all. And then he took her, got her formalities completed, everything was completed, and sent her away. She said, Baba, don't try to get in touch with me. I know you have a family. I don't want that family to be upset. Please don't try to get in touch with me. If at all a situation arises, I will be. But always remember, I am your child. He understood that she lived in USA or something and left. Somewhere along the time, he got a message that she got married and there are grandchildren, things like that. Daughters were born. So all this went through his mind when the voice said, Baba, on that particular day. He said, what do I say? She says, Baba, if you want to see a Mishu alive one last time, please come. Come to Kolkata. This is the last opportunity for you to see Mishu. He said, what happened? She said, you come and see. So he didn't know how to explain to his wife and children. So he called them and said, a friend is urgently calling me who is in deathbed. I think I'll have to go. No, I said, okay, go. If you have to go, go. So he took a flight, landed in Calcutta. Maya was waiting for him, tear-stained eyes. She drove him to the home. The same home in which more than 30 years ago, Chakravarti Babu said, my salary is not enough even to take care of my daughter's lingerie. He went into the same house, a sprawling, my God. The modern Mercedes standing, the BMW was standing there. He went into the house and they heard that Chakravarti Babu had passed away by then. Only his mother was an old relic available there. Some aunties were available. The room in which he was perhaps humiliated was a room where which Mishu was lying down. Oh, Mishu, that, oh my God. Pinkish skin had turned yellow because of the disease. And her hair, lustrous brown hair, had become wispy. Eyes had sunken dark circles under the eyes. She was breathing heavily and she was on life support system. Maya went inside near her and whispered something in her ears. And Mishu opened their eyes. One last time, Kabir and Mishu looked at each other. And Mishu said, come to me. Kabir took her in her arms, hugged her. And I don't know how long they remained hugged. After some time, Maya touched him on his shoulders and said, Baba, she's gone. So Mishu died in Kabir's hands, Kabir's arms. This story was told to me by Kabir himself. And when he said, he couldn't complete the story. I sang a song for him, but when he started crying even more. So this is how the story ended. The next day they called him home. By the time, there was a lot of property in Mishu's name. There was a beautiful document made. The document left everything to Kabir. She said everything will go to Kabir. Tea gardens, properties, everything. Overnight, this fellow earning about 18-20 lakhs per annum has become a crorepati. 50 crores worth of property made out to him, will to him. And Maya said, Baba, I want you to have it. If this is what Ma wanted, this is what you will have. Kabir consulted his lawyers and then remade the documents, willing everything back to Maya and her two children. And of course, some settlement for people like that. And he also realized that because Kabir was a Baha'i, Mishu had also converted to Baha'i. And they completed the last rites under the Baha'i system. And then what happened was they were leaving. Maya said, Baba, I'm leaving now. By the time Maya's husband had also come over from the US, she had married a guy called Kuldeep. Very nice man. Only thing is Kuldeep was bald as compared to Kabir's full head of hair. Very nice man, Kuldeep. They all met. They were staying away. Maya had two small children, two daughters. They called her Tulu and Bulu. They were their names of the child. That was how they were addressed, pet names. Tulu, Bulu. And Bulu was a split image of her grandmother. Bulu, on the day of the departure, hugged her grandfather. She told her in Bengali, Dida. Mother's father is called Dida. She said, Dida. Ma bolen tumi naki amar Dida. Mother told me that you're my grandfather. তুমি এইখানে আছো কেন? চলো না আমাদের সাথে। আমরা এলেতে থাকবো। এলে is Los Angeles. আমরা এলেতে থাকবো। He didn't know what to say. There was a lump in the throat of Kabir, in Maya's throat. And they could see Mishu smiling somewhere. Maya and her family left India. Kabir made his way back home. Kabir is still there somewhere. I've not met him for a very long time. He must be in his late 60s now. But this one story, which touches me deeply in my heart. The story reminds me, I'll tell you that story as well. The story deeply reminds me of a person who loved so dearly, who lived so dearly. They loved each other and circumstances couldn't bring them together. That lady carried this person's child and then she decided to face the world. She told her father. Her father said, oh my God, you're an unmarried girl. What will happen? She said, go take a ride. I don't care what happens. It's possibly because of her father had a heart attack. But then you go take a ride. You've already taken away my lover from me. I'm not letting you take my child away from me. She says, whatever it is, let the world say whatever it is. Like, I'm going to pick up this child. And she brought up the child. Very, very strong woman. She didn't tell the child. In fact, what I understood from Maya, what Kabir told Maya is, Maya told Kabir is, Kabir, Mishu did not tell Maya who the father was at all. She said, hey, Kumar, Baba Mara, I mean, Achin, we are separated. That's what she said. She didn't bluff. She didn't say, Baba Ma died and this, that. She said, I and your father are separated. And I can't explain the thing to now. She said, one day you will meet your father and you will know that he is your father. I don't even have to tell you. So on the day when Maya landed and for the American consulate work in Chennai and she met Kabir, she said, Baba, she knew that was her father. Ma ja bolechen shade of me, or exactly like what my mother told me. So an amazing love story where two people really loved intensely, emotionally, passionately. And even today, I possibly am the only person who knows the story other than Kabir. Nobody else knows the story. What a wonderful story. It's not a wonderful story. It's a deeply touching story. Very often, when I do my music performances, when I have to tell some songs, which are sad, all I have to do is to imagine Kabir and Mashumi in these songs start flowing. The song which I love singing and which I love singing. He says, suppose he were to sing today, he will say, Mujhe tumse mohabbat hai, magar main keh nahi sakta. मगर मैं क्या करूं बोले बिना भी रह नहीं सकता. Yeah, I can't express love. I cannot say live without. What a life it is. But this is love. This is love. This is the pida that only a lover understands deep down. It's an amazing emotion. If you have not loved in life, understand you have missed something very big. प्रेम जिसने ना किया हो जिंदगी में बहुत कुछ खोया है. Nobody knows what he has missed in life. He or she has missed in life. An amazing love story. Kabir or Nishu. Sometime, if ever you think of these people, just that evening, when you see a full moon night, look at the full moon night. You can possibly see Kabir and Nishu there. Enjoy that full moon night and sing some lovely songs for them. Live some lovely songs. I do singing. I do whenever I look at the full moon, I sing for Kabir and Nishu. It's a real life story. It must have happened sometime mid-70s, 75 to 78. And Kabir is there, living his life comfortably. But when I met Kabir, he's very happy, nothing lacking. And I actually met Kabir in a program when there was a small mehfil. We were sitting together and we were having a program and I was singing there. And suddenly, when I was singing a song, this fellow did this. And he showed me, he said, "Baat karo yaar." I said, "Kya, besura hai kya?" He said, "No. You are disturbing me very deeply." And the song I sang was, "Bhule se mohabbat kar baitha, नादात बेचारा दिल ही तो है, दिल ही तो है, हर दिल से खता हो जाती है, बिगड़ो न खुदा." He fellow cried. Very, very touching personal story. Deeply personal, stirring story, which I thought I'll share with all of you. And a lot of people have left in between. Maybe not. 13 people are still not a problem. So I'm sure if you are deeply touched by the story, okay, you can share feelings with me, what you feel at the end of the story. I would also like to share with you 2 more stories. We still have time. 15 minutes. One story is a movie story. And all of you in your lifetime must watch this movie. It's available on YouTube. Even if you have to pay money, please watch this story. Don't miss out on this story, okay? And maybe you can act it out or something. I don't know. You should watch this story sometime. This story is of a princess from a European country. She's so tired of a princely lifestyle, constantly monitored. You have to stand straight, you have to eat properly, you have to do this, and she runs away from her princely home. She runs away from her princely home and ends up in the city of Rome. Rome is a bad place or a good place depending upon who you meet in Rome. She ends up in Rome. In Rome, she meets a handsome young journalist, an American journalist. A struggling journalist looking for a good story so that he can make a name for himself. A journalist and his photographer friend. She doesn't reveal who he is. She acts as though she is in amnesia, doesn't know what it is all about. He meets her and tells her that he's a daytime, okay, nighttime. He sends her away. He finds her sitting near some fountain. No place to go. So he brings her home. Every day they get closer, 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 closer. And this man realizes that he is in love with her. And the photographer friend have amazing photos of the lot of them together already. Then one day these people go around Rome riding a scooter and get arrested because of rash driving. And when they get arrested, the police realized that this lady is a princess who has run away from the kingdom. So obviously they put a lid on the whole thing and convey it to the embassy. The embassy officials come and take her away. That's the last day they meet together in private. They realize they're deeply in love. The embassy takes them away, and after a few days later, she's crowned. I think after her, she's now taken over as a queen of that European kingdom. She's crowned and she hosts a reception. A lot of people meet her, and among them, she's got a date for all the journalists and other people who have come to meet her. And among the journalists who are called are these two people from the US, the photographer and this man. This man's name is Joe Bradley. And she meets everyone. She looks at Joe Bradley. They introduce, the ADC introduces. Madam, this is Joe Bradley. Your Highness, Joe Bradley from the newspaper. Yes. That's Your Highness. She shakes his hand and says, glad to meet you, Mr. Bradley. Her friend, Bradley's friend, who has taken all those lovely photographs, and if they had released that, he would have made a killing in the market. He gives all the photos to her and says, a souvenir from us, Your Highness. She sees all those intimate photographs of Joe Bradley. She goes on stage, wishes them all well. Princess looks at Joe Bradley, and Joe Bradley looks at the princess. Swallows hard. Wipes away tears in a most unobvious manner that nobody notices. Puts his hands in his pockets and walks away. When I see this, I remember the song from the movie, in which Hemant Kumar sang this. Uff na karenge, lab si lenge, आंसू पी लेंगे हमसे अब घबराना कैसा हम सौ बार मिला. Just walks away. Should see this movie, Roman Holiday. Don't miss it. It's a black and white movie featuring Audrey Hepburn, Gregory Peck. You should see this movie. See the movie for the dialogue, especially don't see anything, just see the last scene. You will see dignity personified. A person of dignity. Love can bring the best side out of you. The love can bring also the worst side out. I will revenge you. I will avenge you. It's sad to hear stories all over the world where people throw acid on the people for having spurned them and things like that. There's a story, he just walks away. He knows that he has no place in the prince's life. Walks away. Just walks away. Please see the movie Roman Holiday. Don't miss that. You should definitely see the story. So, two lovely stories. Apart from Radha Krishna, I got two lovely stories. I don't know whether I should share a very. Okay. I swear you all to secrecy. Okay, please don't. Keep the story to yourself. Don't talk about the story to anyone, not to anyone. I swear you to secrecy. Show me your right hand and tell me, I'll never share the story with you. It's my personal story. I'll tell you. I used to work in Kolkata. And in a particular place, we used to go by and take a bus. Those buses were called mini buses. Small bus. There about 20 people could sit, 10 people could stand. From the starting point, it'll have about 3 stops. I used to board the bus in a place, South Calcutta, about 10-kilometer distance to my workplace, which was in a place called Dalhousie Square or BBD Bagh. I think I told you the story of Binay Badal Dinesh. It used to take about 25 minutes to 30 minutes to drive that place. And it was like a family. All of us knew each other. We all used to board the bus at a particular point. And it used to happen. And people used to know, they used to know my regular seat. Somebody else say, no. Hey, Reserve Bank Dada has been. Reserve Bank fellow will come and sit here. Very regular. It was fun. And we boarded the bus, and it was a daily thing. One day, as I was sitting there, there was somebody who boarded the bus. Oh my God, I've not seen a more attractive person in my life. Hair, and oh my God, I don't know how to describe free flowing hair, brown hair. Oh, nice Cleopatra nose, lovely complexion. Lovely complexion. Nice, I spoke a lot. Very rare color eyes. Or something that had a mixture of purple, black. The same thing only, Tana joke. Such a lovely person. She looked at me and looked away. And then still a few days went on. And she would get into the bus, look at me, look away. But as she used to board the bus a little later, she had to be standing. So one elderly gentleman next to me, he once said, "Hey, তোমার পাশের সিটটা reserve করো, reserve that seat." Somehow he knew that I was fond of it. But it never happened. We never got to actually talk or anything like that. Just smile. It was a hint of smile. And then the bus used to stop at a place called Council House Street. That was one stop away from the Reserve Bank of India's stop. She used to get off at Council House Street and walk across. It was a Hong Kong bank building. I thought she worked somewhere there. I didn't know. I don't even know her name. I used to get off in the next stop. So one day, somehow she smiled. She said, "Evening, Council House Street." How my heart stopped beating. And she said, "Bikel Bella, Council House Street." Around 5:30, my office gets off, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm really thrilled." So I went in the evening. I was so excited that my boss said, "Arey, kya ho gaya yaar? Lag raha to kisi Dilruba se milne ja raha hai." I couldn't tell him the truth. So I walked across and went to Council House Street and waited there. She came down from the Hong Kong bank, looked at me, looked away. She couldn't believe possibly. Then she was shocked. She looked back. She looked down at my elbow crutch. And there was absolute shock in her eyes. She wiped her tears like that, turned around, walked away. I never saw her again. Perhaps. And then I realized all along when she had been seeing me in the bus, she had always seen me sitting down. I was always seated. She had only seen me up to the bust. And what a robust guy, things like that. That was perhaps the first time she saw me standing straight. Perhaps, I don't know. I don't want to blame the person. Perhaps she could accept the person with a physical disability. What to do about it? It's a dent in the car. What can I do about it? And after that, I decided to get a more fancy looking elbow crutch, which much later I got. That didn't stop me from growing. But even today, when I think of the day, when I go to Kolkata, there is one place I avoid. That is Council House Street. Only a few years ago, 2017 or 18, I went to Kolkata. I went to that same place and stood there and sang. Yehi wo jagah hai, yehi wo fiza hai, yehi par kahin aap humse mile the. Real story, the song I am creating now. Okay, story is real. I don't know her name. Didn't have the courage to ask her. I don't know why she walked away. I never saw her again, even in the minibus or in Council House. So many days I used to look around. I was tempted. I was in the Reserve Bank. I could have walked into the whatever bank it is, any bank, and asked them, "Why is there somebody by this name?" There were no mobile phone those days. I had friends in the bank. I could always call up and say, Aurup was there, a very good friend of mine in the Hong Kong bank. All I had to tell her was this beautiful lady I would have realized that half of the bank was in love with her. But that's a love story I'm sharing with you. Please don't tell anyone, okay? Kisi se kehna nahi. My deeply personal story, I'm telling it for the first time in this small forum for all of you. If you have gone through love in life, understand you're fortunate. If you have not gone through, never mind. There's still never too late to fall in love. It's never too late to fall in love. I would say never fall in love, rise in love. Let love make me a better human being. Let me not curse the person who perhaps rejected me for my physical being. Maybe what she had image of. Perhaps rather than marry a person who was otherwise written and say, I married you because of sympathy and things like that. Maybe she was smart enough and wise enough not to go through that. I don't blame anyone. Life evolves. So these are the three stories I wanted to share with you. So of course, Radha Krishna, Andal Meera, Radha Krishna, Kabir and Moshami, Mohan, and I don't know her name. And of course, Joe Bradley and the Princess of Roman Holiday. 3, 4, 5 stories. If you are interested, okay, please write to me at my email address, share your love story, if you have a love story. And my prayer is you should fall in love. They say it's better to have loved and lost rather than not to have loved at all. Okay? And also remember, nobody loses in love. Whoever wrote this, better to have loved and lost rather than not to have loved. I'll say you can never lose in love. It's something it does to your heart. It humanizes you. It thaws you. Your priorities change. For the time you are in love, there is just love, nothing else. Just one step after this is moksha. So you can never lose in love. It always does something. Perhaps another person is not close to you. What would have happened if you're close to you? All you refuse to get, you have sex and have children. And start what? Bickering by soup mein, salt mein hai. I thought I was in love. Somebody once said, I thought it was love in first sight. When he said, no, I took a second look. Luckily, you don't fight and all these things. You have lovely memories left. I have only lovely memories. I remember Kabir's story very dearly because of the deep love he had. I remember my story because of made me a good human being, made me accept myself as I am. That was wonderful. That was the best part of the story. I became acceptable to myself as I am. I didn't wish, I wish I could athletically run fun. I'm okay as I am. But at least the passport size photograph was allowed. So प्यार इबादत है, yes. इब्तिदाए इश्क में हम. It's like that. प्यार इबादत है. It's love. Love is divine. It is an Ishvara Srishti. It makes you a human being. Wonderful folks for being with me in my journey of love stories. I've got so many love stories to tell you. It was quite a job picking up a few love stories. Okay, I initially thought I'll tell you a story of Soni Mahiwal and things like that. Romeo Juliet. About all of you have heard it so many times. So I picked up sorry, 2 real life stories, love stories. Both are real life stories, and one Sanma story. And 2 stories, Andal and Radha, which have spiritual implication. So I've covered spiritual, I've covered movie, and I've covered real life. In real life, it's important to be alive to realities. If you're in love, acknowledge it. Only thing, remember, love should not be a clinging love. It should not bring down people. It should be a love where you are free totally. There is total love. There is total, everything is total. No guilt, no conflict, no residual hurt. No residual, no. Some people say I'm see, like a fellow once told. It's a real life counseling situation. The fellow called me one day. He said, "Can I see you, sir?" I said, "Yeah." I don't know why he chose to. I have never told these stories. He said, "Sir, is it wrong to love someone?" I said, "Who told it's wrong to love someone?" He said, "No. When I think of that person, I said, I understand what you're. When you think of a person, and all thoughts come to you, you're thinking of hugging her, kissing her, having intense, intimate relationship. All these thoughts come. No? He said, "Oh, sir." I said, "Why are you feeling ashamed about it? You're natural, you're normal. No? If these thoughts don't come, it's a problem. You look at the opposite sex and you say, no, I have no desire for you. I'm looking at mother for you. Kya pagalpan hai? Put him in Agra or Ranchi or best place. I'm in Bangalore. NIMS, no? We have got lovely places for such people. Bed number 10, Kilpak. Pagal hai. When your emotions surge, when your testosterone levels surge, understand you're normal. Be normal. Ishwara's order. Be normal. But there is something called buddhi. Exercise it properly. That's all. If that is done, your love is fine. That's what I understood. That's what I understood of love. And when these emotions rule you, when you sing a song, you can't help expressing these emotions. Whether you're singing a song, whether you're acting on stage, it radiates out of you. Mujhe kitna pyar hai tumse. And it radiates out of you. It's something wonderful, God-given gift. Thank you very much, folks. Seniors today, please share this love story with friends. About 14 people attended. Wonderful. So happy. Thank you very much. Anybody wants to share? Welcome. Unmute, please. Unmute and speak. Anji.
Apne that story about Kabir. If they had so much of intense love between them, why that girl, she never left her house, father's house, and stayed with Kabir?
Didn't know. I don't know. I never chose to ask. That is one part, inexplicable. I felt, I only told him that. He said, I don't know, and I didn't ask. He just walked out. That's all.
Because as we see in movies now, the love is very strong, they will just leave the house and come with the hero.
Perhaps, see, I think these people were realistic. See, a very wealthy family living a certain lifestyle and things like that. And then she possibly felt that living with them, she may end up becoming a bickering, bitter person, and then they will have to separate in anger or something like that. Perhaps, she thought that I may not be able to live that lifestyle. And she didn't feel like telling Kabir, why don't you come and accept my father's conditions? I would appreciate Moshomi for respecting Kabir's self-respect. She would have said, she would have also said, why can't you leave your family and come? She never said that. She said, you understand my difficulty. He said, I understand. They both understood their constraints, which is something wonderful. That's why I never asked him further. Anybody would like to share anything? Welcome. Thank you, Dr. Smita, for your comments. And the story which I told today, counselor story, is possibly the first time I'm telling it in public. So respect my privacy. Don't ever say this in presence of my wife or something. They'll say, "Kya hua tha counselor?" Maybe that's why I sing so many love songs. Wonderful then. Thank you very much, friends. We'll meet again. One more edition. Second week of March. No, first week of March. Just 28. First week of March. I'll come back and we'll share another beautiful set of stories. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Mohan sir. Thank you very much.